Okay. So the next topic in your syllabus is inline functions. Right now, let us discuss about inline functions. So when the function is preceded by inline keyword, then we can call that particular function as a inline function, right? Then what is mean by this inline function? Before going for the definition, let us see what is this inline function. So anyway, as the name says, for the function we are going to declare any particular function as a inline function. For that we are going to use the keyword inline, right? So what will happen? We all know that if we are writing one program, first we will be doing function declaration, followed by that at one location we will go for function definition. The function definition may be inside the class declaration or outside the class declaration part, right? And at the end, from the main program we will be going for the function call, right? Or inside any of the function also, using nesting of member function concept, we can simply call a member function, right? So these are the three things we have related to function. So just remember what is the job of this inline function. So whenever we are going to call, we are going to assume one particular function as a inline function, it will reduce the execution time. Why? Because we know that whenever we are going to execute the program, the control will be moved for the next lines, right? So we, in terms of computation, we will call it as a control signal, right? So the control will be executed sequentially, right? If we have a looping statement, then the control will jump from one location to another location, right? So here, if it is a inline function, then whenever there is a function call, the control will not jump from the called location to the function definition. Instead of that, the function definition, complete function definition, will be copied to the function call place, right? So from where the function is called to that particular location, the complete function definition will be copied, right? So this is the job of the inline function. So what happens if we copy the entire function definition to the function call place? So it will reduce the execution time. So instead of transferring the control from one location to another location, the complete content will be copied wherever it is called in the program sequence, right? So what will happen? The control will be executed sequentially. There will not be any jump from one place to another place. So this will reduce the execution time. But in other words, we will be having one drawback. So already we have the function defined in one location. So some amount of memory has been occupied for that. But again, the same defined function we are copying in another location, right? So it is like a repetition of the same module, right? So it will occupy certain memory space, right? So in that terms, we can say it as a drawback. But in other words, if we talk about the execution time, if we go for the inline function, then the time taken for execution will be minimum, right? Why? Because there will not be any jump from one location to another location. Instead of that, we are copying the complete code to that, we are copying the complete definition to the function called location itself, right? So this is about the inline function. So now let us see the definition for that. So when a function is preceded by the keyword inline, then that particular function is called as inline function. Okay, and the inline function, whenever a function is called, the control does not move to the definition of the function. Rather, the definition of the function is copied to the point from where the function is called, right? So to the function call location, the complete function will be copied. And the main objective of this inline function is to reduce the execution time, right? So the overall execution time required to complete the program will be reduced if we use the inline function in middle, right? And the syntax. So the normal syntax for function declaration or function definition is return type followed by that function name and argument. If it is an inline function, it should be preceded by the inline keyword. So inline, return type and function name. Then within curly braces, we will be having body of the function definition, right? So let us see one simple example for this inline function. So this is a simple program where I have created one inline function. So inline, return type is int and the function name is rect. Within bracket int y, I am passing one argument. Okay. And inside this definition I have only one return statement, and this return statement itself I have given the calculation. So 5 into y. Okay, and inside the main program I have created one local variable x. See out, I'm getting the value of the x, right? Then from the main program I'm just calling that particular function. Since I have declared this particular function as a inline function, whenever there is a function call from the main program, right? So if it is a normal function, then the control will be transferred from the main program. The control will be transferred from the main program to the function definition, right? If it is a normal function, since it is an inline function, in this function call place itself, the complete function definition will be copied, right? So that the control will not be transferred from here to here. Instead of that, the control, when it sees rect of x, then directly here itself it will go for the function definition part, right? So the control will be in a sequential manner. So once the function definition has been finished, then it will print the output, right? So this is about the inline function. So let me show you the example for this. Okay, so here you can see the inline function. So the program which I have shown you, the same program I have given here. Okay, so now let us execute this program. Okay, so x value I have to enter. So I'm giving 10. So if you see, the output is 50. Because inside the inline function definition, I have given the calculation 5 into y, right? So here, whenever we are giving the value, so x is the local variable which is inside the main program. So it is asking us to enter the x value initially, right? So since we are passing this x value as the argument for the inline function, so it will go for the calculation, right? Then it will be printing the output. Okay, so we can't see any difference when we execute. Why? Because the execution time taken will be with few milliseconds. Okay, so if it is a large program, okay, so when we are going for large program, in middle, if I want to use some small function definitions, right, some small functions, so in those places directly we can go for the inline function, right? So let us see what are the drawbacks we have and where we can't use the inline function. So those things we will discuss so that you can easily understand. Okay. So the disadvantages of inline function. So as I told you, so if the function is too large, right? So if the inline function is too large, then using the inline, making it as an inline function is of no use. It is useless, right? So inside the inline function definition, if the number of lines is very minimal, then we can copy that particular function to the called place, right? Instead of that, if the function definition of an inline function itself, if it is some more number of lines, then copying the same module again in that place will make no sense, right? So that is the one drawback of the inline function. And the second one is the keyword inline. It is just a request to the compiler. It is not a command, right? So if I declare any particular function as an inline function, I can't expect that the compiler has to consider it as an inline function. So based on the execution, so the compiler may reject that particular function as a inline function. It may assume it as a normal function also, right? So this is more important. The keyword inline, it is just a request to the compiler and it is not a command to the compiler. Okay, so the compiler may decide during execution, it may reject the request of inline. It may consider that particular function as a normal function also, right? So based on if the function definition is too large, right? So again, if the function definition is too large, the memory taken by this particular program will be more, right? So based on that, the compiler will decide accordingly. So these are the drawbacks of the inline function. And next we need to discuss what are the situations where this inline function won't work. Okay, so for the function returning value, or if we are having loop statement or a switch statement or a go to statement, if all this statement exist, then the function that particular function should not be considered as a inline function, right? So it should be separate. The particular function should be separate. It should not have any loop back or go to statement. So again, from that particular function, if we have jump to another location, then it will be like a chain process, right? So already we are copying that function definition to the called place. Okay, so with those things we can't copy all the loops which is related to that particular function. So in that place we should not keep it as a inline function. And for functions not returning value if a return statement exists, right? And then if the function contains static variable, so what is this static variable? This we will discuss next. Okay, so if the functions contain static variable, then again we can't consider that particular function as a inline function. And if the inline functions are recursive, so as you all know that the recursive function is the function will call by itself again and again, right? So those type of function will be called as a recursive function. So if for recursive function, if we assume it as a inline function, then how many number of times the function will call by itself, that many number of copies we can't make, right? So that won't be correct. So these are the situations where the inline functions won't work. Okay, and again we should know about this inline function. So where and all we can use it, and on what basis we can make a particular function as a inline function. So it is our decision only. The user has to decide for certain functions to be inline function. Okay.